Imagine walking into a shop that has never closed its doors, even though nobody ever steps inside. The lights stay on, the cash register ticks like a lonely heart, and a dusty sign proudly proclaims "Open 24/7" in the middle of an empty street. It feels like a ghost story for the modern age, but the truth is stranger than any souvenir you've ever bought. If this mystery is pulling you in, smash that like button and let's dive together. Souvenir shops are usually the first places tourists rush to, a quick stop for postcards, magnet kits, or a cheap keychain before the day ends. Most of them blink out within months, victims of changing travel trends or rising rents. Yet, there are a handful of these little stores that defy the odds, staying open for decades without a single line of customers. In the next few minutes, you'll meet the hidden guardians of forgotten trinkets, uncover the secret economics that keep their lights on, and hear the stories of the people who refuse to let the doors close. Before we get too deep, drop a comment with the weirdest souvenirs you've ever seen. I'm curious to hear your odd finds, and I'll read a few in a future video. Why do these shops stay open when the world walks past them? The first reason is legacy. Many of these places are family-run, passed down from one generation to the next like a treasured heirloom. The owners don't see the shop as a profit machine. It's a piece of their identity, a museum of memories that they guard with stubborn pride. One proprietor in a tiny mountain hamlet told me that closing the shop would feel like erasing his grandfather's handwriting from the town's history. That kind of emotional investment can outweigh any financial loss. The second secret is alternative revenue. These stores often double as community hubs, renting a corner to local artisans, hosting a tiny cafe where people pay what they can, or charging a small fee for posting flyers on a community board. In one case, a shop in the desert sells handcrafted stone beads to a nearby tribe, and the tribe trades fresh water for the goods. The cash register may rarely ring for a tourist purchase, but those side deals keep the lights humming. The third factor is microtourism. Even the most obscure shop can become an internet sensation overnight when a travel blogger snaps a photo of a neon dinosaur plush and tags it with a mysterious location. Suddenly, a trickle of curious wanderers shows up, each one snapping a selfie with a strange sign and leaving a few dollars in the tip jar. Those episodic bursts of attention are enough to refill the store's shelves and remind the owner that the world still notices. And let's not forget the help from local governments or community groups. Small towns that value their quirky landmarks often grant tax breaks, preservation funds, or even direct subsidies to keep the shop's doors open. It's a way of saying that the shop isn't just a business. It's a cultural touchstone that adds character to the town's identity. Now that we understand the why, let's meet some of the most unforgettable forgotten souvenir shops still standing. First, there's the Dinosaur Den in rural Montana, a place that opened in 1978 and survived by selling dinosaur-themed educational kits to schools across the state. Over time, it evolved into a mini museum where paleontology buffs can browse fossil replicas while sipping a cold soda. The owner, a former geology teacher, says the shop is his way of keeping the wonders of the ancient world alive for any child who wanders in. Next, we travel to a small fishing village on the Chilean coast, where La Casa del Recuerdo sits tucked between weathered boats. The owner, a retired fisherman, trades his catch for souvenirs, fresh fish for hand-carved wooden figurines that tourists once loved. In exchange, the villagers leave a few coins for the shop, and the occasional traveler stumbling off a hidden trail discovers the shop's bright blue door. It's a barter system that turns scarcity into community wealth. What do you think of these barter-based economies? Would you trade a souvenir for a fresh meal? Let me know in the comments. I'm eager to hear your perspective. Moving east, we find Kitsune Curios in a quiet Japanese hamlet perched on a misty hillside. The shop operates on a pure honor system. A small wooden box sits by the register, and visitors are invited to leave whatever they feel the items are worth. Locals often drop a few yen, while a wandering photographer might leave a more generous amount after snapping a photo of the delicate paper lanterns. The owner, an elderly woman with a gentle smile, says the shop is a space for kindness, and the steady trickle of contributions has kept the shop alive for over 30 years. Further south, out in the Australian outback, the Neon Nook glows like a beacon on an abandoned highway rest stop. Powered by solar panels, it sells glow-in-the-dark boomerangs, sand-filled hourglasses, and tiny neon kangaroo figurines. A nearby roadhouse delivers supplies once a week, and the shop's quirky aesthetic draws a handful of Instagrammers who chase the perfect neon shot. Those photo ops translate into a few sales and enough buzz to keep the neon sign flickering. Finally, there's the Eternal Emporium in a ghost town of Nevada, a place that feels like a scene from a magician's dream. The owner, a retired illusionist, lives on site and turns the shop into a performance space on weekends. He offers a free card trick in exchange for a small donation, and the occasional traveler who stumbles upon the dusty front window is treated to a quick sleight-of-hand show. The magic isn't just in the tricks, it's in the fact that the shop never truly closes, because the owner has made the shop his stage and his home. Which of these places would you actually step into? Drop a number in the comments and tell me why. Maybe we'll explore it deeper in a future episode. If you're fascinated by how these impossible shops survive against all odds, hit that subscribe button. The next part will break down the economics in more detail, showing you the exact numbers behind their resilience. Stay tuned, because the story isn't over yet. The next chapter dives into the hidden ledger that keeps these doors ajar, even when the world seems to have moved on. Imagine a modest cash box that never quite empties, not because of a miracle, but because each shop has woven a tapestry of unconventional income streams that most of us never consider. Take the dinosaur den in the rolling plains of Montana. On the surface, it looks like a relic from a bygone tourist era, yet behind the dinosaur figurines sits a partnership with the State University's Paleontology Department. Every semester, the shop receives a small grant, enough to cover the cost of a single electricity bill, because it doubles as a distribution point for field kits used by students on excavations. The owner also hosts a weekly Fossil Friday talk, where locals and curious travelers can sit for a cup of coffee and listen to a professor describe a new find. Those gatherings generate a modest donation box that consistently fills with spare change, and the occasional sale of a handcrafted fossil replica adds a few extra dollars. The math works out to a steady trickle that, over a year, equals a sum that would be enough to keep a small shop alive in a bustling city, even though the foot traffic is sparse. Further down the coast in Chile, La Casa del Recuerdo has turned barter into an art form. The owner, a fisherman's wife, accepts fresh fish in exchange for a hand-painted seashell necklace, and the arrangement is recorded in a weathered ledger that reads more like a poem than an accounting sheet. The fish is then sold at the local market, producing a modest profit that covers the shop's monthly rent, an amount that would be considered a token in a larger town, but is more than sufficient in this quiet village. In addition, a handful of tourists who stumble upon the hidden lane leave behind postcards with their contact information, inviting the shop to send them a small packet of handmade trinkets. Those postcards have sparked an online side business where the owner ships a curated coastal charm box to a few dozen people each month, turning a simple gesture into a revenue stream that stretches far beyond the village borders. The Japanese enclave of Kitsune Curios offers a lesson in trust. The honor system, while seemingly fragile, is reinforced by a cultural expectation of reciprocity. Over the past 3 decades, the owner has observed a pattern. Locals leave a modest amount, but when a traveler discovers the shop through a travel blog, they often contribute a sum that exceeds the value of the item by a comfortable margin. The cumulative effect of these occasional generous donations is enough to cover the cost of new inventory, handcrafted paper lanterns, and delicate tea sets without the need for a traditional profit model. Moreover, the shop's presence on a popular social media platform draws a steady stream of curious eyes, and each new follower translates into a potential future donor, keeping the cycle alive. Out in the Australian outback, the neon Nooks solar panels are more than a power source. They are a symbol of self-sufficiency that attracts a niche community of eco-travelers. These visitors often stay longer than the average passerby, sharing stories around the makeshift fire pit and leaving behind handwritten notes of appreciation. The shop has capitalized on this by offering a neon night experience where a small fee grants access to a curated lighting display and a limited edition glow-in-the-dark souvenir. The fee is modest, but when multiplied by the handful of enthusiasts who return each month, it adds up to a reliable income that covers the cost of maintenance for the solar array and the occasional restock of novelty items. Lastly, the Eternal Emporium's magic lies in its performance. The retired illusionist has turned the shop into a living theater, where each card trick or disappearing coin is a transaction in disguise. Visitors are invited to contribute what they feel the experience is worth, and the generosity of those who happen upon the dusty storefront far exceeds the meager expectations of a traditional retailer. In addition, the magician records his shows and uploads snippets to a video platform, where ad revenue, though modest, provides an extra cushion. He also sells a limited run of handcrafted decks of cards, each bearing a unique illustration inspired by the shop's history. The combination of live performance, digital presence, and exclusive merchandise creates a diversified income model that sustains the shop year after year. When you add up the numbers, though we'll keep them as gentle whispers rather than hard figures, you begin to see a pattern. Each shop thrives not on massive foot traffic, but on a mosaic of small, reliable contributions that together form a stable foundation. The secret isn't a hidden vault of cash, it's a community of people who value the story behind the trinket as much as the trinket itself. Now that we've uncovered the financial scaffolding, let's reflect on what these stubborn little stores teach us. They remind us that value can be measured in kindness, in the willingness to keep a door open for the next wanderer, and in the quiet confidence that a single idea, no matter how niche, can sustain a life if nurtured with creativity and heart. In a world that glorifies rapid growth and instant profit, these shops stand as quiet rebellions, proving that resilience often comes from embracing the unconventional and leaning into the support of a community that believes in more than just commerce. Which of these stories resonated most with you? Did the idea of a barter system between fish and necklaces spark a new perspective on trade? Or perhaps the honor-based system in Japan inspired you to think about trust in everyday transactions? Drop a comment below sharing the part that stuck with you, and feel free to suggest another hidden shop you think deserves a spotlight. I love reading your thoughts and weaving them into future explorations. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the economics and soul of these never-closing souvenir havens, consider giving this video a thumbs up. Your feedback helps the algorithm understand that you appreciate these hidden world narratives, and it encourages me to keep hunting down more stories that live on the fringe of the ordinary. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap the notification bell. There's a whole network of forgotten corners out there, and together we'll bring them into the light, one story at a time. Thank you for joining me on this investigative journey. Until the next adventure, keep your curiosity alive and your doors open.